I'm going to introduce the use of the building because it's so useful, as everybody knows who's ever been with me. When I use it, you're going to love it. Wait a minute, I need to see it. Because actually, it's the way life is. This is the penthouse. And this is going to kind of help a little bit. And this is you. And I think when you have an image, like a myth, like a story, that you can relate to, that you can use, like for me, I actually really do retreat into my interior castle. That's a very real place, that place of retreating into my castle, and the image of closing a drawbridge when I feel that I am in a atmosphere or I'm around too many exterior psychic free radicals. I pull my gate up. But it is a command to my entire field. It's a command to my mental world, my physical, my spiritual, and all of them simultaneously close. So that I am in an atmosphere that is fundamentally protected by grace. This is also an image that I hope you will find as useful, and that's that your life is like a building, and it exists like any building. Once it's built, once you're born, the ingredients are there. And the only movement from that point on is in the building. You're free to move as much as you want inside the building, but you can't move the building. So once you're born, you can't change where you were born. You can't change the ingredients, but you can change the floor. And we all start out on the first floor. And every level is a different level of consciousness. So let's say that out here there's a mountain range and there's a river. But from the first floor you can't see that at all. You have no idea that in fact you're living near, because here's another building. So if you can imagine that there are people in the building who live in the penthouse, and when they're up here, they see the mountain range and they see this beautiful river, and they have nothing but clean air and they can't hear any noise from the earth. So the world they live in at the same address is a stunningly tranquil, gorgeous reality. Whereas as far as you're concerned, that reality doesn't exist at the same address. Yours is crowded, loud, dirty, noisy, filled with taxis, filled with grit, where you have to keep your windows open so someone doesn't come in and rob your house. As far as you're concerned, your address could be one of the most difficult and dangerous on the block. You have no sense that there are any mountains anywhere, much less ocean, much less a river, because you've never seen that, ever. So you don't know what they're talking about. But it's the same address. This is exactly what consciousness is like. We all live on our own floor. And the whole journey is about moving up to the floor, moving up, moving up. And like anything else, as you move up a floor, you see the same from a different view. And the world gets wider and wider. But with every floor, you have to leave behind a lot of your neighbors. The mortgage gets more expensive, and you have to work harder to pay the mortgage to live on that floor. The rent gets higher and more expensive, but it becomes worth it because the view becomes so spectacular. And you get the sense that I just want to go up, and it's more tranquil on the inside. You begin to see the proportions change, that the glitz of the world ceases to fill you as the view and the quiet and the tranquility that you establish at the higher views begins to take over. And you prefer this view from the traffic and the noise out here that used to be your distraction. Here it was, what can I go out and get, experience, taste, indulge? Because on this floor, it was all about indulging your appetites. Because you were so near the ground that you could smell and taste, hear, touch. You wanted every one of your appetites indulged. And here, it was a whole different experience of wanting to become very particular about what appetite. The withdrawal from appetites. As you become more and more clean of what controls you. And you start making more and more choices as to what you want to have authority over you. What you want to have influence over you. You start becoming very selective about I can't have that. I can't have that in me. I don't want that in me. I am separating from this. I need to examine this in me. I can't have that issue call my spirit anymore. I've got to work on that. I have to unplug from this. That's when you are in the middle altitudes. That's when we're in here. Now, the significance of doing this work is so gargantuan because, as I had brought up earlier, and I'm going to probably refer to this again and again and again, that in entering nuclear consciousness, we opened ourselves. We became quantumly intimate with each other. The internet and internet. It's like we operate like the internet psychically now. We send each other. We hit send every time we have a thought about each other. That's exactly how we work. We are that interconnected. And the kind of collective, because we have woven ourselves together technically, which has never happened before, because we plug ourselves in to the global brain, technically, the way that we are interconnected is something that the mystics have always taught. Jesus taught that. Francis, Buddha, we're all one. They all taught that. Now we have technically caught up with it. Now our technology is that way, as if it's something new. But what we have yet to go anywhere near, what we've yet to go anywhere near at all, is what it means to be psychically intimate with each other. What it means in terms of our immune system, what it means in terms of our health, what it means at that level. So I brought up earlier terrorism, for example. What it means now that we are living in a planetary community that is being held hostage by terrorism in a way that has never existed before. And that we are also a species that spends most of its resources trying to figure out how to destroy itself. both medically, pharmaceutically, and in weapons. And that this is what we do with ourselves. This is what we do with ourselves. And that this is where, and a lot of our video games are about killing ourselves and killing our own species. That killing is an entertaining pastime. It is a pharmaceutical pastime. Tranquilizing ourselves instead of being conscious. And that it is part of the investment of our capital in the military-industrial complex. By the way, I'm not trying to get you riled up for politics at all. I am telling you the way it is. This is how we invest our energy. This is how, and it's the normal way. This is normal for us. We've adapted to this. And we actually, now here's a tribal belief. We believe that if we don't do this, we won't survive. Instead of getting that we won't survive because we do this. This is how morphed we are. We don't get that this is why we won't survive. We believe we won't survive unless we do this. Okay, so when you see the power of insanity, this is how insane we've become. Now, what this has at a psychic level, at this level that is opened up, this collective level, it has our collective psyche has a type of immune system, has a type of this is our archetypal structure. Let's start there. This is our archetype world. One of the ways you can measure the health of what's happening is when you see the changing patterns in archetypes, and this is how you can chart what's going on in the collective, is how you read the archetypal patterns and what is actively happening. So I'm going to hit a pause button here. And I'm going to say that how significant this is. For yourself, for your life, for the way you understand. When you're on the first floor, you're going to take everything literally. You'll take everything someone says literally. You will interpret everything literally. You will think you're the center of the universe. Because that's the quality of consciousness on the first floor of the house. You will think you are in charge of everything. Because you have no other way to look at it. You won't understand that everything that happens is a symbolic, is the result of an energetic pattern that in the 10th, 9th, that has manifested into a physical action. You won't get that. You have to, when I was learning medical intuition, I started out, this stress causes this. But what are the emotional stresses? Eventually I saw, and this is where I'm going, eventually I saw, the first time I did a reading, I thought Norm had a pirate in his office. And I saw an image when I did a reading of a woman with a low-cut dress and a sword, like a knife at her side and a long skirt. And I did not realize I was looking at an archetypal pattern. It blinks like this. It's that fast with me. I thought this was actually how she was dressed. And I said, wow, Norm, what did people say when she walked in your clinic? And he said, nothing, why? And I said, wow, you got a pirate there. And anyway, it turned out she had pirate tendencies. Anyway, after that, It was patterns in us that had more power than, it was our patterns that then held the control and influence over why we do what we do. I'm going to talk about that continuing. It took 20 years of my life in sacred contracts. As I looked at what are our patterns, what are our patterns. The most fascinating study of them all, to me, was patterns. But even eventually patterns did not teach me what about healing. Patterns were not enough to figure out why we could heal or why we couldn't heal. Nevertheless, when I studied the patterns of the cosmos, what I learned, and what I still do, is that archetypal patterns in our cosmos follow how they're shifting, and it tells you how the evolution of what's happening to us is shifting. For example, traditionally, the vampire has been a demonic archetype. In the vampire is an archetype that has to be invited over a threshold. It bites your 5th chakra. And it sucks, this is willpower. It sucks the life out. And you become where your body becomes immortal if it continues to take the willpower of other people. It is an archetype that has traditionally horrified people. Over the course of the last 15 years, that archetype, which again is associated with immortality, has shifted places with the archetype of the priest. The priest is now seen as the demonic. Oh, ow. What's going on here? I got it. Very clever. Oh, wrong one. Wait. Just. Right at the priest. Mm-hmm. Just as I was about to say, right? The priest is seen as the demonic archetype now. That when you see the priest, it is the sign of a demon. And the vampire is seen as the archetype of something romantic, something you want to be with, something that's enchanting, charming. And if you listen to some of these archetypal characters that are on television that are vampires, they are made out to be absolutely romantic. I want to be with you, bite my neck, and I'm like, holy Christ. And the very thought of someone going to a priest, are you kidding me? They put up a cross at the very thought of going anywhere near a priest. Now that is the handiwork of darkness. That is the handiwork of possession. That's the handiwork of darkness. That is a measure of how there is such a curious archetypal shift. An extraordinary handiwork that our archetypes that once represented the immortality, the journey of the soul, we now have shifted so that the focus for us is that we want our bodies to be immortal. We do not want our bodies to age. We can't bear the thought of aging. And this is really important. We don't want our bodies to age. We want to deny how old we are. We have all kinds of techniques to make sure nobody knows that we are aging in any way. But we want our health products to make sure we're healthy for a long time. And it's our body, and we want health to be all about making sure our body does not break down, because it must be immortal. So it's the task of moving immortality into the body. Never aging. And not dealing anymore with what the journey of the soul is. I have never once in my whole career had anyone ask me, what happens after I die? Do I have a life review? I have never once had anyone do that, but they're great about karma. Do my choices matter to where I'm going from here? Do they matter? But it's okay to talk about karma, to make up where you've lived, but not to talk about what comes next. Okay, and all of this I say to you, because when you're dealing with your own healing, you have to have a whole portrait. You can't cherry pick the parts of spirituality or the parts that appeal to you. You can't say, I only want the good. I only want to deal with past life, but I don't want to deal with the possibility that I might die. I only want to deal with the idea that if I'm a good person, bad things won't happen. I only want the world to be the way I want it to be. That's not the way the universe works. This is a universe that simply has laws. The laws operate on shadow and light, good and evil, choice and consequence. And it includes the workings of darkness as well as the workings of light. You simply learn the rules. And you learn that you are designed to sense when you are flowing into darkness. And the whole structure of your intuitive system is to say, I'm crossing the wire here, your conscience. I've just made a bad choice. Now why have I done it? And that's your spiritual life. Why have I done this? And prayer is about getting grace in and saying, help me not to do this again, because that was pretty stupid. And that the choices you make are not because of your history, they're because of because of who you are today. It really is summed up just like that. But what I have learned is our healing, why we get sick, everything, the collective is all connected to this as well. That we don't exist separate from this whole. And when I finally realized that even the study of archetypes, as essential as they are, and they didn't hold the key to healing. That's when the passage to your soul opens. That's when I had that Teresa of Avila experience. I don't have to relive that. A lot of you know that. I'm not going to bother going into all that. I'm just going to fast forward and say that the mystical level, the level of mystery, that's when I learned the laws. That even the mystics, and their work is where we're going so much of this. If you look at the work of all the great mystics from Buddha but especially in the Christian, because I lean on them so heavily, but what they have in common, whether they're Francis or John of the Cross, Teresa of Avila, Ignatius Loyola, any of them, once they get into the high altitudes, none of them tell you have to be a Catholic or a Christian. They start floating into cosmic territory. Once you cross over tribal lines and become involved in law, the nature of God, the nature of yourself, you cease to wonder who's what. Because those are the rules that divide people. You stop focusing on what divides people and makes you better than someone. And you start looking on what makes you the same. Instead of what makes you different, you start looking at what makes me just like everybody. Because it's what makes you just like where you find the truth. If you focus on what makes me better or different, you are following an illusion. Got it? Okay. I just want to make sure I wanted to say something. In this last reference I'm going to make, but when I was talking about the way our psyche is now because of for numbers of reasons, but this, what I call nuclear consciousness, we now operate like a global psyche. I want you to think about you standing in, remember the latitude and longitude things you had as a kid, latitude, longitude, the way the world was? Here, this is my last drawing. These are the only ones I do now. Here, this is a lot easier. Here you are, okay? That's it. This is where you live now. You live in the middle of a globe. Latitude and longitude are now electrical circuitries. They are now a communication system for you, where you are constantly picking up the collective circuits from everybody. This is the circuitry of the internet. You pick it up. And what's on this internet, what's on the grid here, are all the collective, the psychic free radicals that communicate epidemics and epidemic thought, epidemic diseased thought, the kinds of thought forms that make epidemics and weaken the collective immune system, and therefore weaken your immune system. Are thought forms that build up prejudice in tribe, or make you feel like your tribe's weakened in any way, which is why the US is in so much trouble right now. Okay, so those kinds of thought forms. And what that does is it creates a kind of madness. And the way it manifests is the tribe becomes more brutal. So one of the archetypes that you see resurrecting now is the barbarian. The barbarian. It has been animated again in a big way. It's the worst of the tribe. The worst. The barbarian has been, and I see all of these cross points here, like that, where latitude and longitude cross. I want you to imagine that those are archetypes, and they get animated. So like the archetype of the king and the queen and the princess are getting turned off now. Their era is over. So so just think that they're like winding down, which means that the magnetics of that archetypal pattern are being withdrawn from the evolutionary patterns of Earth. It's not essential anymore. So as the years go by, little girls won't think of themselves as princesses, and they won't be looking for knights, and knights won't be looking for princesses. You could see that it's getting worked out of our collective. Just getting worked out little by little by little. But what's sometimes archetypes get rebooted, reworked, reanimated. And one of the ones that has gotten reanimated is the barbarian. And that has, come of age. Another one that's gotten rebooted is the magician, like Harry Potter. So there's a number of these archetypes that have just gotten rebooted for our time. Now, the next, I'm going to go a different direction. I would like to talk about, ask you if you would in your own make note of where you yourself feel balanced or imbalanced in your life. Where do you see yourself as out of balance? I'd like you to kind of partner up with someone. That it's always good in the afternoon to talk to someone, because this is when you could take a dip in your eyeballs, and I'm not going to let that happen. So this is fun. I'd like you to partner up with someone that you don't know. No, husband and wives are not allowed. But I'd like you to partner up with 2 or 3 people that you don't know. I want you to do an exercise. So find 2 or 3 people that you don't know. Or if you just met, you 3, that's fine. If you've just met,